Hi everyone, so we have the pinch pot that I made earlier, and I put it in front of a fan for an hour and a half, and it is now leather hard. By which I mean I can hold it and I can try to squeeze it and it'll only move that much. I can hold it by one side and it doesn't start to flop at all, okay? You know, it's really like, it's very firm. It's kind of like if you picked up a firm shoe and tried to flex it, it's not gonna do that. So at this stage, I'm going to do some smoothing and then I'm gonna start doing the surface pattern that I have. So you'll notice that my pot does have some areas that are not quite smooth or even yet. And before I move on to that, I just wanted to say, so I put my pot in front of a fan for an hour and a half to get it this leather hard on a fairly humid day. How long you'll need to wait for a piece to be leather hard depends on a bunch of factors, humidity being really important, and then like how much airflow there is on your piece being the other one. If you left it out for 5 hours with no fan, it might be leather hard, or it might still be a little on the wet side. You might need to wait 8. It depends on the humidity that you're working with. So you should always go by like, does it flex still? If the answer is just barely, then it is leather hard, okay? If it doesn't feel chalky yet, that's good because you don't want it to feel chalky yet. All right, so now that I've got it at leather hard, I'm going to go ahead and smooth it some more. So you can use whatever tool you've got. If you've got a piece of plastic or a credit card or an old gift card, you could use that. You're gonna put your thumb on one side, your fingers on the other, flex it into a curve and use it this fashion. Or you can use a real rib tool. Okay, I'm gonna take this rib tool, middle rib, thumb on one side, fingers on the other. And I'm gonna actually have turned my pot upside down. And I'm gonna hold my hand here and I'm going to smooth, and it's taking a little bit off, you can see, from bottom to top. And I've got my pot centered on a banding wheel right now. You don't have to use the banding wheel. You could just as easily take a piece of paper or a paper towel to help you spin on the table easily, or honestly, if you didn't have it at all, it would still work. But I'm gonna use my banding wheel because that's a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm once again holding my thumb on one side, curving it. Okay, and I'm just holding the bottom of my pot with my pot centered, meaning in the middle of this banding wheel upside down. So I'm just smoothing up a storm right now. You'll notice that clay is coming off, and that's okay. That's what is intended. Little bits of clay coming off. You don't want to run out of clay thickness, so you don't want to like peel, you know, the whole thing like an orange. But I'm just going around and getting it really nice and smooth, taking care of any areas where my stuff wants to stick still. And this would not work at the wet stage, and this would not work at the bone dry stage because it would not be the correct consistency. It should feel kind of like a block of cheese, like cheddar cheese. So I'm now trying to erase any inconsistencies and get it really nice and really smooth. Okay, and you'll notice at the bottom, there's some buildup there. I can take my tool now and just run it around there and clean it up. Okay, now I'm gonna turn it right side up. And you'll notice that my top edge has like a bunch of stuff on it. And that's from what I just did on the bottom. So I'm gonna do the opposite now. Take my rib tool, hold my hand on the inside, and I'm gonna apply counter pressure. So if I'm pushing on it with my rib tool this way, I'm gonna be pressing my hand out that way. All right, so here I go. And go nice and slow. Periodically clean off your rib tool. And this is just smoothing to make it really nice and symmetrical and create a really nice smooth texture on your pot so that when you carve into it, it'll look really elegant. So you can see the difference between where I have not gotten to yet, which has a lot of roughness, and where I have gotten to looking quite a bit smoother. So I'm going bottom to top, all the way around. Cleaning off my rib. This is also taking off some of the extra thickness that I still had in some parts and helping to smooth it out quite a bit. When you get to the bottom, you may start to get some texture from the tool that you're using. If that happens, simply flip it over again and get those areas. So it's just a back and forth between the top and the bottom, the top and the bottom, the top and the bottom. You can really get lost in the kind of meditative quality of smoothing a pot, which I love. All right, I'm pretty satisfied now with how that looks. Some people would take the rib on the inside if their pot was big enough. I'm gonna just leave it having the natural texture of my fingerprints on it because I actually like the way that looks. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make an aesthetic choice, meaning a choice about what I find beautiful. My top right now is somewhat irregular. It has some bumps and lumps, and I'm going to straighten that out. And the way that I'll do that, I'll take, it could be anything, it could be a ruler, it could be a popsicle stick, it could be another tool. And I'm gonna take either my needle tool or my cutting tool. One of these would do the job fine. And there are a couple ways I can do this. The first is I can anchor my elbow on a table. But the second, which is sometimes more effective, is that I'm going to take a tool right next to it and I'm going to place my tool and I'm going to hold it there. And so I've kind of created like a little jig for myself. So this will just hold. And I'm going to hold that on my pot and I'm going to just spin my pot around using that jig. And you see I'm just tracing a line. So now I've got the line traced all the way around it. If I tried to cut off just half of the top, like a half circle, it probably wouldn't end up being even, but I'm gonna cut off the whole top now. So I've got my cutting tool. And again, I could use my needle tool for this. The cutting tool will be a little bit more precise, but you can use whatever you've got. And I'm just gonna cut in there and drag straight through the whole thing and stay on that line. If you like the organic look on the top rim of your pot, then keep it. But for what I'm gonna do, I actually want a little bit more of a geometric look. Okay, so I've cut off my top and there's some roughness there and some sharpness there, but you can see that it's level now. Okay, so at this time, what I really need is some water. So I'm gonna get my little baby sponge and get just a little bit of water on it. So now it's just a little bit wet. And I'm gonna take that baby sponge and I'm gonna smooth. So I can actually take that sponge and I can wrap it across the top and just pull back and around. And you can get just as obsessive with smoothing the rim as with smoothing the rest of the piece. And you'll notice that I'm finding that there are some irregularities. It's leather hard, so it's still moist enough that if I pinch lightly, I can actually achieve the same thickness all around again, just by pinching it. So I'll do that and make it a really nice finished edge. You could choose to have it be looking flat or you could choose to have it be rounded. As long as it's consistent, it's gonna look really nice and polished. So you can make that judgment for yourself. I'm now gonna smooth out the inside of my pot with a sponge. So I'm gonna hold my hand on the outside and I'm just rubbing this sponge in a motion like this against my hand support on the outside. So I've got my hand, and then I'm gonna make a whoop, and then I'm gonna move my hand and keep going whoop, 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 whoop. And I'm just smoothing out that inside. So that's why I didn't use the rib tool. It'll be a little bit bumpy on the inside because of all the finger impressions from making the pot. But this is, again, helping to make it symmetrical and even. So it's pretty good looking on the inside, but you can tell that it was made by pinching. All right, and now I can go ahead and sponge my outside. So this is gonna be my last really big smoothing step before I do my carving. And that's to achieve a really nice, wonderful, smooth motion. So you can see I'm doing the same thing like I did when I made the pinch pot. I'm putting my hand on the inside and I'm taking my damp, not soaking wet sponge, and I'm just making a vertical motion around the whole piece. Now here's a tricky bit. If I want to flip it and do the bottom, I'm gonna have to do my rim again. So you can put down a piece of paper on your banding wheel, or if you're not doing it on a banding wheel, you won't have this issue. You can just put it on a piece of paper, but make sure that if you're gonna put your rim down, that your table doesn't have any of these little pieces of clay on it, because they'll stick to it and you'll have to fix it. So I'm smoothing out my bottom now. Okay, I can keep with my vertical motions, or I can start doing side to side. Whatever you do, be consistent so that the mark making on your piece is really nice and consistent. All right, and this would be the perfect moment to go ahead and write your name on your pot. I think I've mentioned to this class before that I really like using a pencil, but I can't seem to ever remember to put my pencil near me, so I'll just use my needle tool. And I'm gonna write my first and last name. And the reason that I would do my full name and not my initials is that there are 250 students at Yorktown High School that take ceramics, and they all go into the same kilns. And if you ever want to see your piece again, you're going to want to be more than just CB. You're going to want to be your full name, which for me is Christine Bolin. All right, so I've got my full name on there now. All right, and at this stage, I'm going to stop video again, and I'm going to let that get back to leather hard because I've just sponged it, so it's a little bit wet still. I'm going to make sure that it's smooth in the places where I want it to be smooth before I let it set up a little bit more. And now I'm going to think about what I want my surface design to look like, because we're going to carve it.